Ah, the sound of broken fuse. Certainly the sound that haunts us all by now. The sound that, at least early on in the game, means you are in a hurry to pick up some flowers and leaves. This tips and tricks video will hopefully help you avoid running out of power at the early stages of the game, up to where you can automate the whole process with the coal power. And before we begin, remember to subscribe to the channel if you like this content, that really helps. When you first start the game and build your initial hub, you have 2 biomass burners and you can build more. These burn leaves, flower petals and wood that you can gather from around you. Depending on the starting zone, these materials can be easy or slightly harder to come by. Especially the Dune Desert is known for having biomass only in the oases that are luckily quite easy to find. While you can burn leaves, flower petals and wood directly in the biomass burners, you should ideally only do that with flower petals. The reason is that you can convert leaves and wood into much more efficient biomass either by hand or ideally by building containers leading to constructors where you can just deposit all of these items easily. As a comparison, here's an example of the burn rates. Flower petals at 18 per minute, leaves at 120 per minute and biomass at 10 per minute. As those 120 leaves can be turned to 60 biomass, you effectively increase the energy you get from them by 500% by turning them to biomass before burning. I haven't discussed wood so far for a reason. Even though you can find some of it lying on the ground or as a byproduct from picking leaves from the bushes, you will really only start getting large amounts of it once you unlock the chainsaw. It's unlocked with a milestone called Obstacle Clearing in Tier 2, which in my opinion should be quite high on your priority list of unlocking milestones. This milestone helps the power production in 2 ways. It unlocks the chainsaw and it gives access to the solid biofuel. The chainsaw allows you to cut down trees in the game. Pretty much anything that gets a white border when you approach it can be cut down. This gives a large amount of wood and other biomass as well as sometimes other materials like mycelia or limestone. Just a warning. Be sure to have inventory space before you cut down a tree. If you don't, the materials will be wasted. The chainsaw needs solid biofuel to function. You create this using constructors, or again by hand, from biomass. 120 biomass is turned to 60 solid biofuel. Once you have access to solid biofuel, you should stop using biomass in the biomass burners and instead switch to solid biofuel, as the burners will burn only 4 of it per minute compared to the 10 as with biomass. This effectively increases the efficiency of your biomass by 25%. The wood you get from cutting down trees is an excellent source of biomass. 60 wood is turned to 300 biomass in a constructor or by handcrafting. So similarly as with leaves, it's a good idea to set up a container with wood leading to a constructor that converts it to biomass. When you unlock solid biofuel, you should extend this chain by creating solid biofuel both from the biomass created from leaves as well as from the biomass created from the wood. By the way, note that 2 biomass burners that are directly attached to the hub are burning biomass at 2/3 of the rate of the full biomass burners, but also provide only 20 megawatts of power instead of 30 megawatts for the full ones. Solid biofuel is the most efficient fuel you can burn in biomass burners, so after it you should start aiming for coal power. For this you need to deliver the first phase of the space elevator to unlock tiers 3 and 4. After that you can unlock coal power. However, I suggest also unlocking improved melee combat from tier 4 and building a Xeno Basher before going out for coal, as those deposits are usually more heavily guarded than the iron and copper ones. When I go out and set up my first coal generators, I like to build enough of them to last for a while. I'm showing here what you will need for 16 coal generators. Actually, you should take at least 1 more stack of iron plates, as I learned the hard way. You can replace 1 stack of cables with those. These 16 generators provide 1200 megawatts of power, or 1080 megawatts if you deduct the power that necessary water extractors require. This should be enough so that you won't need to come back and extend it anytime soon. However, at this stage you probably don't have access to Mark II miners yet, and in order to get enough coal for 16 generators, which is 240 per minute, you will need either 2 pure coal nodes, 4 normal ones, or some overclocked miners. I have gathered 4 power shards since I know that the location I'm going for only has normal nodes and only 3 of them. You will also need Mark II belts to be able to use the 120 coal per minute that a pure node or overclocked normal one yield. And some more tips before we go. Build a power line as you go, this makes it easier to connect your future power plant to your main grid. And fill your biomass burners before you leave the base, so it doesn't run out of power while you are out. And now we are ready to go for an adventure, looking for coal. And here we are at the, in my opinion, best place for coal generators near the grass fields. I'm just going to clear the way for the nodes first, and then we can build our miners and draw the belts for coal. My general rule is that I'll much rather draw long conveyor belts than long pipes, because pipes can be problematic with hills, etc. So we'll take the coal to water. And here's the golden rule of factory building. Always, I mean always build on foundations. Here I am laying a large foundation on the lake, leaving some space on the sides for water extractors. After that we can place the coal generators, 8 in a row, as well as 3 water extractors near them. 8 coal generators require 120 coal per minute, which is exactly what one of our overclocked Mark 1 miners on a normal node produces. They also require 360 cubic meters of water per minute, which again is exactly what our 3 water extractors produce. This is why it's so satisfactory, if you excuse my pun, to build these generators in groups of 8. I'm then building a simple manifold by lifting the coal input higher with a conveyor lift and placing the pipeline junction crosses on the foundation. As a reminder, you can attach the belt splitters directly to the lifts, which reduces the amount of belts you need to draw. Also remember that the Mark 1 pipe can only transport 300 cubic meters of liquids and the water extractors produce 360. So we need to bring in new water extractors once the generators have consumed at least 60 cubic meters of water, which is after 2 generators. If your base doesn't produce much excess power, it's probably a good idea to start this power plant by just hooking up one of your water extractors and waiting with the others until you start getting more power to your grid. This is done to prevent your base from breaking a fuse. If you happen to run out of power and can't start your water extractors at the coal generators, you can build a temporary biomass burner and feed it some solid biofuel or some other biomass to kickstart the power plant. And this is pretty much how you build the first 8 generators. After that you just repeat the steps with the other 8. And so you have solved your energy problems for a while and no longer have to gather biomass by hand. And that concludes this video. I hope you have learned something new. Stay tuned for new videos both on this series and the Mega Factory one. Thanks for watching and see you soon.